stop everything you're doing. What I'm talking about today is not the usual theory dredged up from the past. Something incredibly important happened in the world of neuroscience and quantum physics just a few days ago. I'm talking about a scientific paper officially published on December 3rd, 2025 in the journal Frontiers in Human Neuroscience. You heard that right. We're in the present, actually, in the future of research. I'm among the first to bring you this in-depth analysis here on YouTube because the scope of this publication could forever change not only how we see the brain, but how we understand our very existence. We're talking about macroscopic quantum effects, the zero-point field, an experimental confirmation that will make your pulse race. Before we dive into this journey, I need you to do something fundamental for the survival of this type of free information. Subscribe to the channel right now and turn on notifications. If the platform allows it, leave the new hype points or a simple like and comment below. I want to know what you think as we move forward. So, let's get into it. The document I have in my hands is titled Macroscopic Quantum Effects in the Brain: New Insights into the Fundamental Principle Underlying Conscious Processes. The author is Joachim Keppler, and it was accepted and published just a few days ago on December 3rd, 2025. We're talking about frontier science, published in a high-profile peer-reviewed journal like Frontiers in Human Neuroscience. It's not a blog, it's not an opinion, it's a rigorous study. Why is this study an atomic bomb in the field of consciousness? Because for decades, the mainstream scientific community has laughed in the face of the idea that the brain could harness quantum mechanics. They said the brain is too hot, wet, and noisy to maintain coherent quantum states. Well, Keppler completely overturns this perspective and does so using quantum electrodynamics, or QED. The key lies in understanding that water and biomolecules in the brain are not inert, but dynamically interact with the quantum vacuum. If you don't remember what quantum electrodynamics is, I'll leave you here and overlay the link to my dedicated video where I analyze it in detail. Let's try to clarify this concept better, because it's fundamental to understanding the scope of the discovery. When we talk about the zero-point field, or ZPF, we're not talking about an abstract or mystical concept. It's the minimum energy that remains in space even when we remove everything else, a fluctuating ocean of electromagnetic waves that exists everywhere, even inside your head right at this moment. Classical physics ignores it, but QED tells us that this field is the hidden engine of matter. Keppler explains that the brain functions as a resonant system. Imagine having a guitar and plucking a string. That string vibrates at a specific frequency. In the brain, the pluck is provided by glutamate, the most widespread neurotransmitter. The study describes an extremely precise three-phase process. Everything starts in the synaptic vesicles, where glutamate is packed at very high concentration. When this concentration touches a critical threshold, the magic happens. The glutamate molecules enter into resonance with the zero-point field. It's not a standard chemical reaction. It's a quantum phase transition. The molecules stop behaving like chaotic individuals and begin to move as a single quantum object, creating what's called a coherence domain. Think about it. Millions of molecules in your brain that synchronize instantaneously thanks to the energy of the vacuum. And what happens at this point? This coherence generates a massive amplification of certain field frequencies. Keppler calculated that initially a frequency of about 7.8 terahertz is amplified, but then, when the stable coherent domain forms, this energy shifts and is emitted in the form of an internal microwave field around 30 gigahertz. This is the point that drives me crazy. Your brain autonomously generates a microwave field, the ICMF or intracolumnar microwave field, which doesn't serve to heat the tissue but acts as a conductor. This field, generated by the amplified quantum vacuum, goes on to pilot the ion channels of neurons, particularly potassium channels, regulating how much and how neurons fire their electrical signals. It's an internal wireless control, extremely fine, that allows the brain to maintain that precarious and perfect balance called self-organized criticality, which we know to be the unmistakable signature of consciousness. Without this coupling with the vacuum, the brain would be just a mass of cells without the spark of conscious experience. And here we arrive at a crucial point that I know many of you are waiting for. How does all this connect to the famous Orch OR theory of Roger Penrose and Stuart Hameroff? You know, that theory according to which consciousness resides in the microtubules inside neurons. Many critics have tried to sink Penrose over the years. This article from December 3, 2025 not only doesn't refute him, but extends him a very powerful hand. Keppler explicitly writes that the mechanism he discovered, this amplification of the zero-point field, most likely extends downward all the way to the microtubules. The study suggests that the dynamics of microtubules, essential for the transport of neurotransmitters, is governed precisely by this coupling with the quantum vacuum. In practice, the process of orchestration that starts from the quantum vacuum doesn't stop at glutamate, but descends to the very skeleton of cells, the microtubules. It's as if the entire system, from the macroscopic to the microscopic, were tuned to the same fundamental frequency of the universe. At this point, I'd like to make a small digression. Let's get back to the study, because there's an experimental part that is pure genius. Keppler doesn't limit himself to theory. He proposes an experiment to falsify his own hypothesis. And pay attention, because if this experiment were to give the expected results, it will change history. I want to spend a few more words on this experiment because it's of rare elegance. Keppler proposes to take a small section of the cerebral cortex, specifically the somatosensory cortex of rodents, and to cage it. Using perfectly conductive plates, he wants to build a microscopic box around a group of cortical microcolumns. Because according to physics, if we confine the space between two conductive plates, we can prevent the formation of certain electromagnetic waves. It's the Casimir effect. The objective is to specifically suppress those modes of the zero-point field at 7.8 terahertz that serve to trigger glutamate coherence. If the hypothesis is correct, blocking these vacuum frequencies, the quantum phase transition cannot occur. And here comes the beauty. The neurons will still be there, intact, alive, chemically connected. But the quantum ingredient, the connection with the universal field, will be cut. What do we expect to see? Keppler predicts that neural activity will lose its criticality. We will no longer see those complex neuronal avalanches typical of consciousness, but disorganized activity. But the most shocking aspect is the behavioral one. The somatosensory cortex is the one that maps the body. If you touch a paw, a precise area of the brain is activated. Keppler suggests that, stimulating the paw of the rodent connected to the shielded area, the animal will not experience any conscious sensation. The electrical signal will arrive at the brain, but there will be nobody home to feel it. There will be no pain, there will be no touch. Only experiential silence. This would demonstrate unequivocally that consciousness is not produced by neurons themselves, but by the interaction of neurons with the zero-point field. The article also analyzes anesthetics. How do they work? Why do they turn us off? According to this model, anesthetics interrupt precisely this resonant coupling between the brain and the zero-point field. It's not just a matter of blocking a chemical receptor here and there. Keppler cites recent studies showing how anesthetics also bind to microtubules, altering their collective oscillations. In essence, anesthesia detunes the instrument. It makes the brain incapable of resonating with the vacuum frequencies necessary to maintain the conscious state. It's as if your brain were a radio tuned to a specific station and the anesthetic moved the knob to white noise. Now, I want to move to a more philosophical plane, but remaining anchored to what this study implies. We must be clear. The scientific study talks about physical mechanisms, ions, glutamate. But the implications for our vision of reality are devastating. If Kepler's theory is correct, consciousness is not an accidental product of neural computation. It's not software running on the hardware of the brain. It's a fundamental phenomenon that arises from resonance with the universe itself. This leads us to reflect on the nature of death. If our consciousness is a local amplification of a universal and eternal field, the zero-point field, what happens when the antenna breaks? The antenna breaks, certainly, the body dies. But the signal? The underlying field? That remains. Keppler in the text uses a very strong term. He speaks of the zero-point field as the hidden conductor of brain activity. Until today, we've studied the musical instruments, that is, the neurons, trying to understand where the music came from. Today, we are told that the music is not in the instruments, but in the energy field that surrounds and passes through them. We are, literally, vibrations of this universal field localized in a biological body. Attention, here we enter speculation, and I say this clearly for intellectual honesty. The study doesn't talk about life after death, but it provides us with a physical basis to stop thinking of consciousness as something that is closed inside the cranial box. It tells us that we are open systems, in constant energetic dialogue with the cosmos. Keppler also speaks of cosmopsychism in cited works, the idea that the universe itself may have proto-conscious properties. And this 2025 study tells us that the mechanism to access this universal consciousness is written in the laws of quantum electrodynamics. It's a total paradigm shift. We move from a cold and mechanical universe to a participatory universe, where living matter has evolved precisely to play the music of the quantum vacuum. In conclusion, this article by Joachim Keppler from December 3, 2025 is a monumental piece. It confirms that the path of quantum biology is not a dead end, but is the highway to the future. It connects the dots between glutamate, Penrose's microtubules, gamma brain frequencies, and vacuum energy. It tells us that consciousness is a phenomenon of self-organized criticality, guided by the quantum level. We are facing the potential end of reductionist materialism that sees man as a meat machine. We are something more complex, more interconnected, more profound. And science, the real one, rigorous, published in Frontiers, is finally beginning to give us the tools to understand it. This is the outreach I want to bring you. Timely analysis on primary sources, without fear of touching the limits of knowledge. If this video has sparked something in you, if it has made you feel for a moment that vertigo of being connected to everything, then I've done my job. I ask you now to do your part. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It's fundamental. We'll see each other in the next video, always here, always on the frontier of knowledge. Thank you.